Hello, I'm Kevin Francis, Director of the Master of Environmental Studies program at the Evergreen State College. I'll be presenting research that I did in collaboration with Avery Azar, MES Assistant Director, and 3 graduate assistants. This research began as a self-assessment of our program's admissions process and morphed into a more systematic study when we realized that our unique data might be valuable for broader discussions about the GRE. Here were the guiding questions for this review. Does our admissions process match 1, our long-standing practice of holistic assessment of student achievement? 2, our commitment to make graduate education and environmental professions more representative of our diverse society? 3, our recognition of an applicant's often limited economic and time resources? And 4, our need for substantive and relevant information about an applicant's preparation for advanced work in our program. These questions are context specific. To understand our study and its potential relevance for other programs, I'm going to start with some institutional context. MES is a well-established program at an experimental public liberal arts college in Olympia, Washington. We serve students from Western Washington, as well as many students that move to Olympia to attend. We have a cohort model. Each fall, around 40 students form a learning community that persists throughout their time in MES. The cohort takes the core sequence together and also work on their thesis research roughly in tandem. Students come from diverse academic and professional backgrounds, and the cohort model is an essential part of their interdisciplinary education. Our program structure and pedagogy is highly interdisciplinary. Each core course is team taught, usually by 3 faculty from across the natural and social sciences, who teach their expertise, but also collaborate across disciplines. We don't give students different disciplinary parts and expect them to construct an integrated whole. We actively model that integration. We help students develop those skills through seminars, workshops, field trips, and group projects. We hold classes in the evening to accommodate student work schedules, many with these community partners. We have options for completing the program full-time over 2 years or part-time over 3 years. Our program has a required thesis involving primary research. Topics are highly individual and student-generated rather than fitting within a faculty's research. We think this lowers one barrier to graduate education, since students are not expected to court potential faculty advisors through correspondence and application materials. Instead, they're encouraged to focus on their own aspirations and interests. We often assign official thesis advisors at the beginning of their final year, after students have had an opportunity to work with all the faculty and gestate their own thesis ideas. Let's return to the first guiding question about holistic evaluation. We have narrative evaluations at Evergreen rather than grades. At the end of each quarter, faculty write an evaluation of each student's work, discussing the quality of that work, areas of progress, and areas for further improvement. Instead of finals week, we have evaluation week, and students meet with their faculty to discuss their evaluation and expectations for the upcoming quarter. 2 aspects of this evaluation system are especially relevant for this study. First, these narrative evaluations provide granular information about each student's academic skills and accomplishments, something that is missing from a catch-all grade that distills every aspect of a student's performance into one letter or number. Collectively, such data allow us to ask and answer nuanced questions about the correlation between undergraduate GPA and GRE scores and graduate work. Second, this evaluation system mirrors a long-standing holistic assessment in our admissions process. Here are the application requirements, which we consider as one portfolio. Even when we required the GRE prior to 2017, we did not have a minimum score or use the GRE as a filter. Instead, we would triangulate GRE scores with other data from the application to determine whether students were prepared for graduate work. The second question was about diversity in graduate education. Multiple scholars argue that GRE requirements reduce the number of historically underrepresented minorities who apply to, are accepted by, and enrolled in graduate STEM programs. White and Asian men have higher average scores, especially on the quantitative section, than other groups. As one research team concluded, the GRE is a better indicator of sex and skin color than of ability and ultimate success. I want to emphasize that the causes behind differential scores across gender and race ethnicity are complex. The GRE is most likely a barometer of deep systemic inequality in prior education, differences in undergraduate majors, and stereotype threat or lift, among other factors. Experts in psychological testing compare the current backlash against the GRE to blaming the thermometer for global warming. That said, the combination of differential scores alongside the emphasis placed on GRE scores, even in holistic application review, further disadvantages historically underrepresented groups. Julie Posselt's ethnographic study of the graduate admissions process across many disciplines found that GRE scores have a kind of magical simplicity, given their appearance of standardized objectivity. Given this background and the clear economic and time burden, we believe there must be strong evidence for the GRE's predictive value for us to continue keeping this requirement. We had a number of specific research questions focused on what the GRE could tell us about an applicant's preparation for our program. And they concern the link between specific scores on GRE sections and success in certain kinds of academic work, as well as perhaps using the GRE to identify students who might benefit from targeted preparation prior to starting the program. Existing scholarship on GRE validity, as it turned out, was quite vague on such specific questions. It also suffered from a number of other methodological weaknesses. These were range restriction of admissions measures. Most students who are studied in validity studies are in graduate school, and that's a limited range of undergraduate GPA and GRE scores. Graduate GPA is notorious for having a lot of grade inflation, and so that restricts the outcome measures. Graduate GPA is a fairly blunt outcome for measuring and assessing academic preparation. And there are a few studies of the GRE general exam since a major revision in 2011. Our study is conceptually straightforward, even though the process of translating narrative evaluations into numerical scores was very time consuming. Basically, we scored 7 activities or assignments, as well as overall performance for the first 3 core courses. We completed this translation for 3 cohorts, a total of 131 students. Here's some demographic information for the sample, which includes 70% female students and 15% BIPOC students, which is approximately half the percentage of the BIPOC population in Washington state. Our percentage of enrolled BIPOC students has a roughly positive trend line over the past decade, but still plenty of room for improvement. 3 people scored each evaluation based on a common rubric, and the inter-rater reliability was excellent or good for all evaluation scores of academic work. We then calculated Pearson's R correlation coefficients for the following variables. And here is our correlation matrix. And I'm just going to walk through each of the columns here and talk about a few highlights. Undergraduate GPA showed overall weak correlation with academic success, with the greatest predictive value for written assignments. One practical implication is that the undergraduate transcript should be viewed holistically rather than distilled to a single summative value. GRE verbal scores were easily the most predictive of academic success, with moderate to strong correlation in most categories. Interestingly, these scores were also quite predictive of success in the research design and advanced statistics course during spring quarter, which are in the blue box. GRE quantitative scores showed overall weak correlation with academic success, with the exception of seminar and research papers during winter quarter. Interestingly, these scores were also minimally predictive for research design and advanced statistics in spring quarter, the blue box again. The GRE analytical writing scores showed overall very weak correlation with academic success, with the exception of the research paper during winter quarter. Our results here are consistent with findings in a number of other validity studies. So our main conclusion was that GRE verbal scores have moderate to strong correlation in most areas of academic work, and that this confirmed the value of using them in our admissions process. But the other GRE sections have minimal predictive value. And so there was a lot of doubt about whether we should continue the GRE if only one part of it was valuable for assessing student preparation. It supported our decision to replace the GRE with an alternate requirement. That is an analytical essay that assesses verbal reasoning and academic writing skills, and also is more representative of the actual work that students will do in the program and allows them to do some self-assessment and reflection as they're going through the application process. Here are a few tips based on our own experience of conducting a self-assessment. One was the value of conducting a validity study. A second was that it was really useful, and I'm speaking for myself personally, to take the GRE, which I had not taken for 25 years. And it was a great opportunity to think about what exactly the GRE is testing for and whether it matches what the expectations for students are in a graduate program. Third, I think it's really useful to consider alternative requirements to GRE that are tailored to individual programs. Fourth, we think it's valuable to use an evaluation rubric for applications, both for holistic and for systematic review. References and thank yous. And I look forward to talking with you all on June 30th.